All right, is everyone seated? Almost. I want to welcome everybody here. What a great turnout. This is terrific. To this most incredible library. I think it's the most beautiful library in the world, don't you think? And our wonderful librarian, Angie, who has made so much of this possible, to be coordinated, yes, Angie, to be collaborated with and coordinated with the Outdoor Arts Club. And many of us are here as well. Yay. So, I am Beverly Rogers, and I'm a member of both. I'm a very longtime patron of the library. I just returned a couple of books that were overdue, and I'm a member about 2-3 years of the Outdoor Arts Club. And I am thrilled to be able to introduce someone that I have followed, I think, for a long, long time, as long as he's been doing his IJ columns. And if you don't get the IJ on Wednesdays and Saturdays, I suggest you do, because that's when you will hear all the underskullduggery that is going on in Mill Valley and in the county. Yes, Mr. Dick Spotswood has been the mayor of Mill Valley. He's been a council member. He's on many boards, mostly of the, not mostly, but among them, the transportation boards. Right, Dick? That's about it, right? Many, many other things, and he's a fascinating man. So he's going to speak to us for about half an hour, maybe 35 or so minutes, and then the best thing of all is you get to question him and drill him with all your questions about what in the heck is going on here. So without any further ado, may I introduce Dick Spotswood.
Yes, indeed. First of all, I've learned my lessons in life. Somewhere in this audience right now is my wife, Joanne. Joanne, where are you? They're way in the back row. I just want to acknowledge Joanne's back in the row. We are newcomers to Mill Valley by Mill Valley standards. We moved here in 1976. So that makes you know. And we moved from far, far away. The Marina district of San Francisco, where I was born and raised. So it's not that odd. It's really a pleasure to be here tonight and see a lot of friends and folks I've known over the years and new people, and it's just an honor to be here. I always start by saying, folks, I'm going to make some remarks on a topic which is, I think, important enough to come here and talk about. But after, there'll be questions and answers. And most of you have come for the question and answers, I understand. And I'll take questions and answers under anything on politics, Marin County government, any of those topics, I'd be delighted to. But tonight, I'm going to concentrate on something I call too much of a good thing. Too much of a good thing is, when we take a break or after you finish, you can take a look at these maps. And the answer is that in the county of Marin, first of all, we have about 262,000 people. We're the fourth smallest in geographical size, and we're 25th out of 52 counties, or 58 counties in the state of California. We're around that big a county. But like many others in California, we have enough offices, public offices, for everybody in this room to run for and serve for the rest of their lives. And these maps will show you all of those places that you can run. They're called special purpose districts. And so I'm going to try to give you a little bit of a background about governmental organization in Marin and tell you where things maybe are a little off kilter and could be improved. And I'm going to suggest, however unlikely that might be, how it can be improved. I mean, the means to do it. Let's start off with the fact that we in Mill Valley have an elected city council. There are 11 cities in the county of Marin, and they're posted here. You know them all, but I could run them off. Let's start with Sausalito and go up to Novato, and you've got Mill Valley, Cormorant, Larkspur, Ross, San Anselmo, Fairfax, Tiburon. Well, what's Tiburon and Belvedere? San Rafael. Tiburon, some of the places are called towns, and some of the places are called cities. For instance, there's the little, quiet town of Tiburon. It's a village, really. Across that little bit of water is the bustling hub, the frantic site of the city of Belvedere. That's right, Belvedere, where the clock never sets. The town's 24-hour clock. What's the difference between the two? Nothing. Some years ago, the state of California said you get to pick and choose, and so we've got the town of Ross, the town of Tiburon, and the city of Belvedere. So a lot of things don't have a deep meaning, which is kind of fun to understand where it comes from. Also, we have a plethora, that's a good word for the library, plethora of special districts. And my big problem with special districts is there's so many, it's very hard to know who the people are that serve on them or what they do sometimes. And when I speak to the grand jury, I give a talk every year to the Marin County grand jury. I'm a big, by the way, they're soon recruiting for members. And I look around this room and I think most of you might be quite qualified for grand jury. The best grand jurors are the recently retired. They still have the energy, but they got the professional background from their own lives to be on the grand jury. It pays absolutely nothing, but you get a free parking space at the Civic Center. And you only have to serve 1 year. Okay, I'm going to give you an example of the number of people by asking somebody in this room to stand up and take a test. First of all, let's have everybody in the room who lives in the city limits of Mill Valley, not Tam Valley, not Homestead, not Strawberry, city limits, because it makes the question better. Yes, anybody else? We have two, yeah, lots of people. All right, let's pick this gentleman. Yes, would you stand up, sir? All right, you're going to have, you're now, this is the Mill Valley variation of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, except there's no prize. All right, I'm going to ask you some questions, and we'll see if you, just as a typical citizen of the city of Mill Valley, have the answers. Can you name your county supervisor? Quite good, quite good. I'd love to say sit down now, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to ask you, we have 5 members of the city council, elected members of the city council, one of which, picked among themselves, serves as mayor. Do you know the name of any member of the city council? I do not. All right, that's okay. You have 5 Mill Valley School District trustees. Can you name them? Now we're getting tough. Well, but you live in the Tamalpais Union High School District. How about Tam Union trustees? Yeah, usually at this point in time, the entire grand jury's laughing because I say to them, you don't know, you're the grand jury, who knows? The answer is, this gentleman doesn't know. All right, well, who's your member of the Marin Municipal Water District Board? Yes, all right. You have a college trustee elected by district. Well, the point is, we can list these. No one knows the answer. You're forgiven. Please have a seat. I write about this stuff all the time, and until there was a big brouhaha about the Tamalpais Union High School District about 3 or 4 years ago, I voted for trustee. I couldn't pick it out. Years ago, we were doing a television show at Channel 22, and I did the election night coverage. And my son, who's now growing up, but at that time he was technically able. He's now in animated television, but technically able. He was a volunteer cameraman. So we go to the election night show, but before we go, we stop at the polling booth. And I said, after we come out, there was a big race for state assembly here in Marin County at the time. And I said, who did you vote for assembly? And he just goes silent. I forget. It wasn't on the card you gave me. Well, I figured it was advertised all over the place. You'd have some idea. Did you vote for assembly? Well, I did. How did you base your vote? This is very common. Based on the person's 3-word ballot designation. People look at that and say, I can, I react to that. If you're going to run for office, you might want to say words like parent, farmer, community person, all sorts of nice words. Astronomer. I always thought if I was going to run, I would be a farmer and a veteran. Everybody loves veterans. I served at Fort Cronkite at the end of the tunnel out there, and the farmer was that I had a big lemon tree. Nothing wrong with lemons. So it's a preposterous basis. How would people know who the folks are that sit in these offices? Given our diminished media framework, there is no money, no staff to go out anymore and say, here's what's happening at the Ross Valley Sanitary District Director. They can't do that. There's just not that money. When I was on the city council, we had somebody from the Mill Valley Record sit there in person and somebody from the Independent Journal sit there in person. There's no more Mill Valley Record. The Herald Group has kind of gone away. And the IJ has somebody call up the next morning to ask the council members what happened last night. I mean, that's where we are on local stuff. So how do you possibly know, that you vote for a member of the Marin County, not Mill Valley, Marin County School Board? Her name's Marilyn Nemser. She lives in Tiburon. She's a very nice person. And you vote for the county superintendent of education. Who that is? His name's John Carroll. I had breakfast with him this morning. And he doesn't have any schools in his district because they're all in the other districts. And they have, you'll be reading about this, they have a budget surplus, which is nice, of $54 million. School districts are going broke, and the County Office of Education, which he confirmed, has $54 million in cash reserves and 300 employees. No regular schools. The regular schools are Mill Valley, Tiburon, various districts. Reed is Tiburon. So you learn all these things, but most folks don't have an ability, because we don't give them an ability to know stuff, to learn this. We had a supervisor in this district, I won't mention Kate Sears' name, who, I was doing a forum, and somebody said, well, how would we know about that? And she said, well, it's on my website. I've never known a human being that says in the morning, I think I'll go to my county supervisor's website today and see what's up. That's not going to happen. So you've got all this stuff, plus countywide officers, DA, district attorney, sheriff. We elect a person in the state of California by district called the Board of Equalization, member of the Board of Equalization. I won't trick you by asking you what they do, because they really don't do anything. There was a giant scandal, and they took most of their duties away and gave it to state civil servants. But they kept the office, which pays $155,000 a car and other stuff like that. And we vote for their member. And I had no idea who it was. And so, coming tonight, I said, Sally Liebert, a Peninsula person who had been on the city council, a Democratic socialist, by the way. Nobody has any idea. And so why do we vote for all this stuff? Why do we have this? Could we not reform ourselves to eliminate some of this stuff? The complications are that scandals can occur because nobody's watching. A few years ago, there was something still there called the Ross Valley Sanitary District. The executive director was a guy named Brett Richards. Brett, sanitary board. I mean, how much time do I have to go out at night sanitary board meetings? The answer is that thanks to the grand jury, they did a report, and a couple of people wrote letters to me saying, you want to look into this? All right, I'll go to the damn meeting, at 8 o'clock at night, God knows, someplace. But before I do, I make a California Document Request Act to see his contract, because they were complaining there were things in his contract. It turns out that Richards had borrowed from the district something like $500,000 or $600,000 or $700,000 because he wanted to buy a house and they wanted him to live in the district. That occasionally happens. So I was kind of curious where the house was. He got the money. So at the break, I go up to him and said, I identify myself, and I said, Brett, let's say it's $600,000. You got $600,000 from the taxpayers here, and where'd you buy the house? Where's the house located? Answer, I don't have to tell you. That's the wrong thing to say. So I go back to my seat and text a friend of mine who's a professional real estate appraiser who has all this whiz-bang equipment at home. And in 15 minutes, he comes back and says, I've checked all 58 counties in California. He doesn't own real estate in any of them. Really? So at the next break, or the end of the meeting, I go up to him and say, Brett, it doesn't appear that you have any house. Where'd the money go? I'm not answering your questions. He goes to the office the next morning. This is in the indictment. And he orders the secretary to destroy these files, shred these files. He then departs and goes to Miami that day. He is Miami. You can track him with the credit cards. He goes to Miami for a couple of days. By now, an outrage. The word's out. He's taken off. The DA gets involved. Richards then flies to Manila. He has not a Philippine background. He just decided to fly to Manila to get away. The district attorney then contacted the Philippine government and said, we're going to extradite Richards. They said, no need to. We're going to arrest him as a illegal alien. They do, and they put him on an airplane for San Francisco, where the Marin County sheriff is happily at the gate, and he is incarcerated. Later tried. I actually testified at the trial. The DA personally tried the case, which is unusual, and it was a hung jury. He had spent 6 months in jail already because he didn't want to make bail, because I think he thought state prison time was harder than county jail time. Prisoners will tell you that. He's just kind of disappeared, but the bottom line is they never got the money back. That's a problem with special purpose districts. A rogue can get in there, and nobody follows it. Let's look at we're talking about sanitary districts. The number, and I'm going to read the names because it's designed, I don't want to say to bore you, but to say, oh my God, that many sanitary districts in the county of Marin? Here we go. They all have sanitary district named after them. El Monte, sanitary district. Alto, sanitary district. County number 2, Corte Madera. County number 5, Tiburon Peninsula. Homestead Valley, sanitary district. Las Galinas Valley, there's problems there. Novato Sanitary District. Richardson Bay Sanitary District. Ross Valley Sanitary District. San Rafael Sanitary District, but it's part of the city of San Rafael. And the Tamalpais Community Service District, which does wastewater treated by Sausalito. That's a lot of sanitary districts. How about fire? Well, if you're in Mill Valley, we've actually made some progress here. We have a coordinated Southern Marin Fire District, which is great. And I'm not sure, I'm almost surprised if he's not here. Is Clifford Waldeck here? He's not. Clifford's at most meetings. And I usually say, Clifford, stand up. Clifford's our fire director, elected fire director, splendid fellow, former mayor of Mill Valley. Here are the fire protection districts in Marin County. Remember, San Francisco has one. Bolinas, Central Marin Fire Department, which is Larkspur and Corte Madera. Inverness Community Service District, volunteers. Kentfield, Marin Wood, Novato, San Rafael, Sleepy Hollow, Ross Valley, Southern Marin, which we just mentioned, Tiburon, and the Marin County Fire Department, which is basically unincorporated areas, and Marin City. There's ways to do this. Why is Tiburon and Belvedere not in Southern Marin? Because the directors love being on the fire district board. I mean, they guard this stuff, and it's not necessarily because of perks. Some of them get nothing. It's just a matter of personal identity. It's their life. And the idea of getting rid of these things is offensive to them. Believe me, when I've written about it, they're offended. The reason this happened, and there's a good reason, think of Tiburon or think of Novato. I just was talking to the Novato Sanitary District president. They just had their 100th anniversary party celebrating the Novato Sanitary District. Sewage collection, sanitary, sewage. There was no city of Novato when it was founded. Novato and Tiburon are two newest towns in the county of Marin. Novato has a fire protection district. It was in existence well before the city of Novato. So 50 years ago, in the 50s, they decided Novato was not a farm town anymore. It could incorporate. But the fire district and the sewage district, and any of those folks, were potential opponents. So the way they bought them off was, Tiburon's the same thing, we'll just keep them. It's just history. You know, why is there a Homestead Valley Sanitary District? Because nobody else was providing sewage at the time. 100 years later, it doesn't make as much sense, but it made sense to start with. And so we have this problem, and that's why I say it's too much of a good thing. While it gives people a chance for citizen participation, which is great, civic community doing things, that's why we have the Rotary Club and the Outdoor Art Club and the Friends of the Mill Valley Library. You don't necessarily have to have governmental agencies with a staff and a management redundant. 17, how many water districts? We got 4, community service districts 6, fire protection districts 12, sanitary 11, in a county of 262,000 people. So it's wasteful. Schools. I was meeting this morning, I think I mentioned, with the county superintendent, and we have 13 elementary school districts in Marin County, 2 high school districts, Tam Union and San Rafael. Technically, there's 2 districts in the same place, and 2 unified districts, Novato Unified and Shoreline. I have often said that well, first of all, a Ross, not Ross Valley, Ross school trustee, it's like a jewel box school. It's a lovely school. And she said to me, how do you regard education in Marin County? She says, excellent, it's very good. It's one of the reasons people move here. Right, she says, why do you want to change it? Leave well enough alone. And the answer is, we have declining enrollment, by the way, in all our school districts because we're an aging society. It's simply demographics. It's not going to private schools or things like that. It's demographics. And the superintendent this morning, the county superintendent acknowledged it. In the next 10 or 15 years, that's going to happen. And we just have X amount of money to spend. If you want to maintain excellence, and once again, they're very good. If you want to maintain excellence, you have to be efficient, and you can't fritter away your money. And so that's one of the reasons why I think you can have excellence more efficiently. There was a woman named Gladys Gilliland. She's still around. She was a San Rafael school trustee, and I always give her credit for this idea. How do we merge the school, or consolidate the schools? Gladys's idea was you consolidate them around a high school. The feeder schools to the high school form a district. Southern Marin, Mill Valley, Tiburon, Marin City, Sausalito, we feed Tam. Make that a district. That's what a unified district is. Novato, they're already there. That's what they do. But we have multiplicity of districts, not just because the trustees love being there, not just because you have a lot of extra staff, but communities also say to themselves, that's part of our identity. But that's expensive. And it's no free lunch when it comes to this stuff. And so that's why I worry about too much of a good thing. And I'm trying to urge a little more practicality when it comes to doing this. There was a man who served in Marin County for many years named Bill Bagley. If you ride on the freeway, you'll see the Bill Bagley Freeway. And when I used to call him up, I asked him, is this the freeway or the man? He was a good guy and very funny. But he wrote a book of California government, how California government used to work and why California government worked well and why, the old days. But he started out in Marin County, I'm leading to a solution here, as a member of the Marin County Charter Revision Commission. The state of California has 2 types of counties, charter counties and non-charter counties. There's around 14 or 15 charter counties. My list here is Los Angeles, Alameda, San Mateo, San Francisco, Butte, El Dorado, Fresno, et cetera. But the rest of them are general law counties, meaning whatever the state legislature says, that's what these counties do. General law cities are the same. We only have 1 chartered city in Marin County with a charter. That's San Rafael, and you can tell that because San Rafael has a directly elected mayor, Kate Collins, or as she prefers to call herself, Mayor Kate. But that's why San Rafael has a charter. It gets to determine what it wants to do itself. A charter county, like San Mateo, can do the same thing. And so if we elected to be a charter county, we'd have, the process is the voters have to approve anything, of course, But a commission is created, if there's enough interest at the public and Board of Supervisors level, a commission is created to think things through, come up with a plan. And it's vetted, there's lots of hearings, everybody has a chance, and ultimately it goes to the voters. Bagley was on that commission in the early 60s. He's passed away recently. And I said, how come it lost? All the special districts were opposed. Well, that's the way to do it. And that's politics when all the special districts are opposed, because at some point in time, we got to get past that. And we have to run this place in a good, efficient manner. I tell the grand jury every year, the interesting thing about Marin County is that government levels here are almost always very good. They're sometimes excellent, and occasionally just good. Rare is it poor. That's because our demographics. It's not because we elected saints to these offices, though they're good people. It's because our demographics. We're, as a community, well-educated, employed, prosperous, and we know we want the streets clean. We don't want garbage lying in downtown Mill Valley. We want to have a library that looks like this. That's what we demand, and that's what we have to ask for, and occasionally we have to push for excellence. There was a man named Tom Peters some years ago, not the one that ran the Marin Community Foundation, who did television programs and wrote books called In Pursuit of Excellence. And he wrote a book called, one of his books was called In Pursuit of Excellence in Government. And for some years I served as a bridge director of the Golden Gate Bridge, and our general manager at the time had the staff read In Pursuit of Excellence in Government. We can achieve excellence, but it's not automatic. It's up to us as citizens to push for it, and it's for us to elect folks like you who can get in nonprofit, nonpartisan, non-paid, really, office and move us forward to the 21st century we ought to be. That's my thoughts. I'm sticking with them, and I'm delighted to take questions from the audience on any particular topic that doesn't offend everybody else. Where are we going to start? Right there. Yes, sir. Right next to Alan Unger.
Dick, the IJ's done a nice investigative journalism piece on MCE. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on the governance of MCE and where it's all headed.
MCE stands for Marin Clean Energy. Oh, yeah. Marin Clean, MCE stands for Marin Clean Energy. It's a, you can participate in this instead of being PG&E, being on a PG&E client. PG&E does the billing, delivers the electrons, but the source of the energy is the question. It sounds like a good idea. I don't happen to personally be a member of MCE. I must have opted out because when it started, the process was you were automatically in unless you opted out. I told Charles McGlashan was the one that behind that. Charles, I said, I'm not going to. That's not going to go far in my column, at least. People ought to be able to opt in, not opt out. And the problem came up when we started to look at some of the compensation of the executives in these areas. The head of MCE salary is a package. The big bonuses in it. So you always look in government, you always look at total compensation package to understand what it is. City managers will tell you that's when they add a new place, that's the question. Not the salary, but what's the benefits? What's it all cost to put the person on the street? That person at MCE's made more than the executive director of Los Angeles Water and Power. Los Angeles Water and Power delivers water and electricity to Los Angeles, 4 million people, and the person who simply makes the contracts. I mean, they don't generate any electricity. MCE doesn't generate electricity. It doesn't distribute any electricity. It's on any lines. They're negotiating contracts with energy providers, which is fine. But to make the same salary as the head of LA Water and Power, that's out of control because nobody's paying attention. Except, let me point out, Larkspur Council member Stephanie Andre, who happens to have a finance background. And every once in a while you get some council members out there who have professional expertise. And it's a real treat for those people like us that write about it. And so Stephanie was able to take me through it. Next question. Yes?
I've been getting these surveys through text messages about the county. The first one I received was, how do you feel basically about a 10% tax on the sale of any house over $3 million? The second one was about, how do you feel about bonds for the Mill Valley School District? So have you heard anything about these and have any idea who's behind them?
I'm going to ask you to clarify. You asked me, is there a proposed tax to tax any house over $10 million?
It was proposed over $3 million as 10% tax upon sale.
Sounds like a bad idea to me, but that's my idea. I just went through a house sale about 1.5 years ago. We moved from the hills of Mill Valley, far, far away, to Shelter Bay. We're still in the city limits, at Sunrise Point. And I see a few Sunrise Point folks out there. Hi. The worst part about moving, there's two bad parts. One is you have to pay a capital gains tax. I don't even want to get into that. It's horrible. And the other is a word, and my wife's in the back row. She's going to cringe when she hears this word, sewer lateral. Really. I don't want to go through the horrors, but what a pain in the neck. So I don't know why we're making it more complicated. I don't think we should.
So the other text message was about trying to get kind of a poll about bonds for the Mill Valley School District.
Oh, yeah.
I'm finding, this method of opinion polls to be offensive, but I'm wondering if you have heard anything about that one as well.
I was telling the county superintendent this morning, paying a compliment to the Mill Valley School District. I said, I think they cleaned up their act. And by that I meant two things. One, the proposal to place the middle school in the fields next to the community center was one of the more tone-deaf concepts around town. People love the community center and they love the playing fields. The second was the whole question about the middle school. Well, they finally decided the right thing to do, which I believe is correct, is to rebuild it in its current location. So schools are an interesting question about school funding. When I just got up to speak, my phone rings. It comes from my hearing aid. Mimi Willard is calling. Anybody know who Mimi Willard is? Mimi is the head of COST, Coalition for Sensible Taxpayers. And one of the things she's going to be pointing out this year is that many of the school districts have moved the cost of maintenance and improvements off the general ledger sheet onto bonding and special tax districts. Traditionally, like a business, one of the things you do, you depreciate property, you put money aside for repair. And more and more school districts are not doing that. They're saying, oh, we have X amount of $1 million in infrastructure, and so we're going to put another tax on the ballot. My mind, that's a mistake. Running a place, a school, a library, a restaurant is part of it is taking care of your property, and that's part of the bottom line. You got to put that in the statement. So I keep your eyes open when school districts start to shift maintenance money and improvement money, if you will. Now, every once in a while, you got to do something giant. I mean, it happens. Earthquake refits mandated by the state come down. You say, eh. So it's each one is at a time. My only advice is keep your eyes open, ask questions, and then kind of look at groups like COST and say, what do they think? We had some ballot measures last time, and this is a taxpayers group, and I wrote in the paper, it's not your grandfather's taxpayer group. While they opposed a number of taxes, they recommended passage of the Mill Valley tax and the Sausalito Marin City School tax. And so when a taxpayer group supports something, to me that gives you a lot of credibility. And it's easy to say no to everything, and it's easy for some folks to say yes to everything. But usually it just requires a little thought and discretion. And sometimes the right thing to do, even for a sympathetic cause, is to say, sorry, I can't do that. Next question. Right here.
What are your thoughts on the Board of Supervisors' inability or unwillingness to set up the state for unreasonable housing requirements, particularly in a county where the population is shrinking?
Please repeat the question in the mic.
Yes, the question is, what about the supervisors, or city councils, you could say? Fairfax is a big issue. I don't blame the city councils. Well, first of all, we have a woman that formed a catalyst here in Marin County, which is you're familiar with that, trying to organize statewide to oppose that. And I always thought that catalyst was admirable, shall we say. There's no way for a city or a county to stop the state legislature from telling them what to do. The only way to do that is, there's two ways. One, get enough signatures to place a measure on the ballot that cleans up the current laws which force cities to do exactly that at the state level. The other thing to do is to grill, and I mean grill, candidates for the state legislature. We have a race for state assembly, and we have a race for the state senate this year in this county. Grill them. Will you be our advocate? And the answer is, too many are part of the go along, get along syndrome, which dominates not just Sacramento, most state capitals. And we're looking for a champion, somebody that can take the stand and rally the other cities and rally the people, ultimately to get the signatures to clean this up. It's the hope is that if you build, the cost of housing will go down. I think if you build, you certainly provide housing for some folks, but the demand for housing, especially in coastal California, is insatiable. Everybody in the world wants to live here. Why not? It's economically booming. It's attractive. Weather's great. So who wants to live in Philadelphia? You know, I mean, it's, they want to live here. And that's insatiable. Hong Kong. Real estate, go to Hong Kong. They're building like mad. And they all talk about the incredible cost of housing in Hong Kong. And because the demand is insatiable. And it just kind of breaks the normal supply and demand rules when the demand's insatiable. Next one. Right there. Yes.
I have a gentleman here in the corner.
My question's about school district funding.
Oh, back there, yes.
Oh, sorry about that. So you were talking about merging the different school districts together. And I come from Nevada, where it's a unified school district. Sorry, everybody hear me? I come from Nevada, which is a unified school district. So they're disadvantaged by being that with LCFF funding because of English as a second language. So for elementary schools where most people are learning to speak English, they look at the school district as a whole to come up with the percentage when it comes to, I don't know if you know how LCFF funding goes, but there's certain bump ups that go up to the funding. So we get the base level, but then we're missing out, even though our school districts have elementary schools, they're learning to speak English at like a 40% rate, since it includes the middle schools and high schools, which also, have lower levels of needing to learn how to speak English because they've gone through that in elementary school. It makes logical sense. Nevada Unified misses out on basically getting a bump, whereas if it was like San Rafael, where it has a school district for the high school and a school district for the elementary school, it would receive more funding from the LCFF funding formula.
I'm a special needs person in that I have hearing aids, so I didn't hear much of that. The basic question, can you rephrase, anybody send me rephrase that? Just the one sentence question.
I think LCFF funding in Novato is creating
LCFF funding in Novato is creating a disadvantage because most people who are English as a second language are in the elementary school, which if those two were different and there was two different districts, they would receive more LCFF funding from the bonus bumps. I was just wondering from your conversation about,
I got to tell you, I just can't hear you. It's just the room diffuses it. That's why it's easy to recognize. Like here, the person in the second row.
Hold on,
When
let
you
me
get
bring you
older,
the
this
mic.
is not an uncommon disability. So
Hold on just a second.
right here.
Dick, I listened to your presentation, and you presented quite a few problems. My question is, where are the solutions going to come from? And if I may suggest, is it mostly the Board of Supervisors? It seemed to me, but I'm not sure.
Well, it depends on the problem. First of all, you asked a good question about solutions. I learned a lesson the hard way about the need to do that, because one day, it was December 30th, and a reporter from the Independent Journal called me up. They're not supposed to call other people at the paper, but she was on deadline. And she says, Dick, I got a problem. I got to write an article on New Year's Eve resolutions. What's your New Year's resolution? Huh? I had to make one up on the spot. And I said, I'm never going to criticize anything without offering a solution at the same time. Damn it. She put it in the paper, and I'm stuck. So it's an excellent question. What are the solutions? First of all, some of the things we have, US 101, I spent some time on it today. And what's the solution to traffic congestion in Marin County? And the answer is, solution's the wrong word. Because if you want to solve that problem, the answer is there's no solution. How do you mitigate the problems? I have my ideas, which deal with the interchange at Sir Francis Drake Boulevard and San Rafael and Bellum Boulevard, which is ridiculous, but that's not going to solve the problem. It's going to mitigate the problem. So I just want to emphasize that we often get into I'm going to solve the problem. Well, maybe we could help the problem, or diminish the problem. So who is responsible? The answer is it's diffused. One of the problems that this shows is so much authority is diffused. Suppose we had a five-member board of supervisors. This is five-member board of supervisors in which one member, the chair, was elected countywide and would be the mayor of Marin County. That's a concept that takes place in other states, where there's a person who's the county mayor. That person is a member of usually the legislative body. They sit together at the thing, but they're elected it's more like San Rafael City Council. 4 council members, but 1 mayor by district, 1 mayor elected citywide. One of the rules you learn in political science class long ago is that you need to have responsibility designated. We need to know who's the person in charge. And if they do a good job, that's the person we say thank you to. And if they don't, that's the person we say, thank you for your service. We're going for somebody else. And if it's so diffused, when I tell you about housing, I start talking about the state legislature. And people look at, well, but you're the mayor. Well, the mayor can't do anything about the state legislature telling them what to do. City attorney's sitting right there at the end of the dais saying, this is what you got to do. And there was a person that testified, it was in my column last week, that testified in San Rafael in favor of the 17-story building. And the person, coincidentally, I found out, was a Sausalito planning commissioner, but an attorney representing the developer. And he said, basically, I know you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, but you got no choice. You got to approve this. He was telling the truth. So there, it's the state of California. And could the state of California be run better? Maybe. So we got to clean up the act, but it's hard to clean up an act when it's at multiple levels. I mean, if all you had to worry about was 5 members of a board of supervisors to determine how Marin County would look in the future, happy days are here again. That's what elections take care of, and in 4 years, we'll have this place humming. That's not what happens.
So your next article will be identifying for each of the problems that you have talked to us about the responsible person?
Well, first of all, you got to stretch these things out. You know, you might read about them one at a time, but a laundry list, I don't think so. Actually, the next one is going to be Urban Carmel, who's I don't think he's here tonight, a councilman in Mill Valley, contacted me yesterday and said he's on the Transportation Authority in Marin. And they've got a whole bunch of statistics of where cars are backed up and where they're coming from and this sort of stuff. That's the next column. And by mileage, and I tend to be a transit proponent, but by mileage, 2% of the traffic on the corridor, 2%, moves by transit. And, you know, and some people want to build buildings with no garages and parking spaces. How's that going to work out? The answer is they're going to work in the park in the neighborhoods. They're not going to not have a car. They're going to park in the neighborhoods. Next question. Yes?
An organization called LAFCO.
Yeah, I'm familiar with. These maps are from LAFCO, by the way.
Okay, when you're talking about consolidation of communities, special districts, fire districts, water districts, what do they do? Anything?
What's the diplomatic way to say this?
I'm asking about the
Well, I'll give you-
functionality of LAFCO, which supposedly is the organization that's supposed to be involved in the consolidation of the community service districts, the water districts, and so on and so forth.
I'll give you the good news and the bad news. The good news is fire districts. We're starting to move on fire districts. We got Central Marin Fire, we got Southern Marin Fire, we got Rose Valley Fire. That's the way to go. That's the right way to do it. And they're not elected. They're usually Southern Marin's elected, but most of them are joint powers, so the cities run them. That's one. That's the good news. The bad news is the other maps. Sanitary district, fire districts. And the answer, some time ago, there was an effort to consolidate the little districts that make up SASM, the Sewage Agency of Southern Marin.
Okay, question in the back.
The district directors love their fiefdoms. And they convinced some of the folks that their taxes would go up. There's no necessarily proof of that. The Southern Marin Fire District had a mantra when they started consolidation. We will deliver you the same or better fire service at the same or lower cost. That's what they got to deliver. The same or better service at the same or lower cost. What does LAFCO do? Well, they sit in a room and look at maps and try to, I think that ... you can get the rest from there. Yes? How are we doing time-wise? We're okay? Good? Okay?
We appreciate your depth and scope of land use. And many of us are concerned about one particular issue in that regard. So would you please comment on Greenland?
Greenland. Yes, I'm happy to talk about Greenland. First of all, I talked to my realtor today, and I'm looking to buy a lot there because it might go up in value, you know, if things happen. I have a Greenland plan. You have to listen to the whole plan before you come to a conclusion. This doesn't really work in print, what I'm going to tell you, but it'll work here. First of all, the United States acquires, don't panic when I tell you this, the United States acquires Greenland. It's renamed Trumpland. To the 54,000 Greenlanders, each receives $1 million tax-free, paid not by the government, but by Elon Musk. They get that. But the question then is, what's in it for Greenland? They've got to get something, right? And the answer is easy. California. California becomes part of the Kingdom of Denmark under my plan. We'll be in the European Union. We'll use euros. They had a great record in World War II. Universal health care. The king's a splendid fellow. And we get a domestic rate at Tivoli Garden if you go to Copenhagen. You don't have to pay the out-of-town rate. The state flag will be the provincial flag. We'll have the grizzly bear and the Little Mermaid. But the people of Denmark, the leadership of Denmark, the prime minister, has only one request to my idea. The current provincial, we'll call it the provincial capital of California is a hot, miserable place. No offense. Sacramento. They want to move it to northern Santa Barbara County. Solvang.
Obviously,
A
he's
Danish
thought about
town
this.
with Danish food and all that stuff. That scene, I told lobbyists to go to Sacramento this story, and they say, yeah, let's be in Sacramento. We'd rather be in Santa Barbara County than Sacramento any day. So that's my answer to the Greenland quandary. Yes, they get Greenland, or America gets Greenland, and Denmark gets California.
We have 2 questions over on the side.
I have
if
lots
you
of
more time.
solutions to world problems. They're all of that level.
Dick, do you have time for 2 more questions over here? Over here?
Hi, Dick. I thought that I would start by taking his advice and sharing with you that I'm one of those Mill Valley kids that went through our public school district, ended up being a teacher, and decided during COVID that I needed to run. So I'm one of your Mill Valley School Board trustees, of which perhaps some of you, as this gentleman said, you know, of course, wouldn't know who we are. I'm Michelle Cernsich Hodge, and I wanted to share with you that I think that we need each and every one of you to, I invite you to go on our website, find out when we have meetings, because coming to a meeting, as Dick has mentioned, and is really part of a surprising benefit of being a Mill Valley resident, in that you can see the good work we're doing. You can help us understand where we need to take our school district next. And there is the possibility of the renewing of the parcel tax that is coming before us, and we really need you to provide us input. So we have a February meeting. I'd love to see you all there. But my question for you is this, because you had a conversation with our county superintendent.
Yes.
And for those of you who don't know, there is a new election coming up for another 4 years, and so by mid-March, we'll see if anybody runs against him. Currently, he'll be running unopposed. So this concept of consolidating districts, when I ran for Marin County Superintendent
That's
against
right. I
John
forgot,
Carroll
yeah.
4 years ago, was a big part of my platform, because as a 25-year educator, public schools, I realized that for many, many years, we have a serious financial dysfunction in the number of 17 districts we have here, and an inability to get economies of scale. But more importantly, as an educator, we have barriers of inability to speak to other districts and other teachers and leverage our taxpayers' dollars for teaching and learning and retooling of teachers. So my question to you is, did you bring up that great idea of yours that we should be consolidating with our county superintendent? And if not, when will you?
Well, the 2 lead questions I had from this morning, by the way, were not about consolidation. I just want to tell you what they are, because one's really of a national importance. We do not adequately teach, and I'm talking about American schools in general, there are exceptions, of course, teach history, civics, and government adequately. Part of the problem we're facing as a nation now is an electorate that many of which don't have sufficient background that they could have. And so the question I have is, what can we do? The first question was, what can we do to start turning that around? And, you know, it usually starts with good teachers. I had wonderful teachers in high school that made me very interested in civics and history, period. I was blessed. And so it's the teacher, it gets down to the teacher, you know, but the district and the staff has to be supportive and innovative on this. The second question I asked him was, so we're going to have declining enrollment. How do we handle that? And the answer was, gently, but declining enrollment inherently is going to mean smaller staff. I mean, he was very upfront about it. It means that we're going to have to say to people who are getting closer to the end of their career, perhaps giving them some incentive to leave early. People don't like to leave early, he said to me, but that's the practical stuff. There are hard decisions to be made. And the consolidation area is another area where there's very hard decisions. In fire, one of the ways that fire consolidations were facilitated was the folks, LAFCO, or the various people who were going to push consolidation, waited for the fire chief to retire. When the chief goes, it opens up, you don't have somebody, and it turns out that most of the firefighters believe that they actually will do better in a bigger department. That's not always true, it depends on the agencies, but as a general proposition, you rarely see firefighters opposing fire consolidation, at least in Marin County. And schools are the same situation. We have to get to a situation where we have support. You know, the school district trustees were for things. It would be a positive. Yes?
I have one more question here.
You may have begun to answer my question. It's about school district consolidation. There's no question in my mind that there's much too much redundancy at every level. It seems that every year there's a new bond proposal, and it's like apple pie and motherhood. It's hard to vote against giving money to public schools, but I do, because there's so much waste and redundancy. You pretty much talked about the solution, which is, among other things, consolidation. My question is, how, when the next bond issue comes up, regardless of how certain costs are hidden off the bottom line, how does the point get across to the people who do not want to give up their fiefdoms of small school districts? How does that point get across to do what seems to be the right and necessary thing, which is to eliminate so many of those middle levels and have the right-sized administration for the number of students and population?
Right. I'm going to give an example of where the voters can push back. The Larkspur-Corner Madera School District has a pressing need for security at their schools. There's no question that we have to protect school children from wackos, period. You know, people with guns and things like that. And it's going to cost some money to build fences around the schools. My view on that is, absolutely. But the bond issue they're going to put before the voters has that as the lead item, the sympathetic item, and a whole laundry list of other items, wish list items. And the message that should go out, I'm planning to write on this, and I know there's people thinking this, is, folks, tell us what's essential. Security at schools, essential. Some stuff would be nice to have, but we can't have everything that we want to have. We're going to vote no on this unless you come back and give us a slimmed-down, essential ballot issue. On that, we'll go far. But with the laundry list, you lose me.
Dick, I think that might be the last question. Is there one more? One more?
Anything else like Greenland? I love those kind of questions.
Hi.
Hi.
The conversation about the housing from the state of California.
Yes.
I live in San Rafael and was at the meeting about the 17-story.
Yes.
And I think everybody in this room needs to realize that that attorney from Sausalito kept saying over and over again, you have no choice
Yes.
but to approve. And the important parts are, they had 25%, they hadn't even given the answers to half of the questions of the people in the audience about how our fire department, where most of the buildings in San Rafael are only 5 stories max, how our fire department is going to accommodate a 17-story. The parking, they have these elevators that they are thinking of, but they had no answer to the actual company who's going to provide that for the parking. They couldn't answer basically most of the questions. Their design was only about 20% complete at this meeting that needed to be approved by the design committee of San Rafael that had to approve it that night without basically looking at the whole thing. We also have 6 other six or seven other large-scale buildings in San Rafael that are right now under construction.
Yes,
We have
yes,
about
yes.
2,000 new housing, and they still approve this 17-story in the entrance to San Rafael. So if we don't push back as a state, this is coming to every
Yeah,
town.
absolutely.
Because they were very arrogant about how he kept saying, you have to approve this tonight, or we will sue you.
As a general proposition, let me just give you a thought, talk about solutions. Fairfax is being ripped apart by the School Street project, as you probably read about the thing. The need for workforce housing and affordable housing is genuine. The project in San Rafael has like 10% workforce in general affordable housing, so it's not about that. But there are places you can build. We have spaces in Marin County, and I've written this about Fairfax. If you ever want to go to a museum of the past, your past, drive out to Fairfax, make a left off Sir Francis Drake Boulevard on Pastoria Avenue, and you'll find Marin Town and Country Club. I have, first of all, as a kid who lived in the city, we'd take the school bus over. I mean, we go on it. Boy, I remember that well. The guy that owns the place, a guy named Michael McIntosh, called me up and says, you want to see the font on site? Let's go for a walk. I met him. Nothing has changed, except trees are growing out of the swimming pool. The sign still says Coca-Cola 11 cents. Nothing has changed. It's fallow. It's flat. It has water, and you don't have to build really 2 or 3 stories, townhouses. It's a lovely location for that, and an appropriate location. So there are spots, and I'm told in Fairfax, well, we can't do it because the people passed a ballot initiative saying that you can't do anything without the voter approval. Well, then put on the ballot a repeal and build something there instead of the monstrosity they want to build on School Street.
Yes.
All right, that's my thoughts. I'm sticking to them.
Thank you very much.
Well, take a look at the map. 2 things. I want to thank the Outdoor Art Club and the library for their kindness in inviting me. Take a look at these maps. They're kind of fun. And I have only one thing to ask you. On Sundays and Wednesdays, check your Independent Journal.
Yes.
Especially on the opinion page.
Right. Thank you, Dick.